What's up, poker players? Hope you guys are out there crushing it on the tables. In the last video, we updated our HUD, and this is the first session with the updated HUD. We wound up losing money over about 1,700 hands. EV was positive though. We had a positive win rate, just didn't run that good. Let's jump into the hands. First, I want to take a look at some hands where our new HUD came into play. First hand we're going to take a look at is at the 50 NL table. Full draw to the small blind who opens, and with the new HUD, we can see that our opponent is opening 60% of hands from the small blind. That is a huge number, and folding 73% to a 3-bet when opening from the small blind. So this is a very easy spot to be putting in a raise. Make it $5 to go, and our opponent does make a fold. And you guys can see right away the effects that the new HUD, the updated HUD, will have on raises and steals from each position. I think this is going to be a very lucrative addition to our HUD and should pay off a lot in the upcoming sessions. And now we are playing Ace Queen at the 100 NL table. We are in the small blind. Full draw to the button who opens. It is a min open. Small blind is a short stacker, but pretty regular and a decent player. And we put in a 3-bet here with the Ace Queen offsuit. Back to the button who jams their entire stack in. Our opponent doesn't showdown that well, only winning 50% of showdowns, and is 4-betting only 50% of the time with premium hands. So we are going to be ahead of our opponent's range more often than not. So I do make the call, and we have our opponent dominated with the Ace Queen over the Ace Jack. Except there's a Jack there on the flop. We need a Queen or a 10, and we cannot get it, and we wind up losing that pot, and that is why we were running negative variance with hands like that. Still at the 100 NL, we have pocket sixes playing from the hijack seat. We open to 3x, and we get a call from the big blind, wind up flopping middle set, and we put in a continuation bet of $4 with the jack high two-tone flop, and our opponent makes a call. The turn is the ace of clubs. This time our opponent leads into us for $5. Our opponent has pretty tight numbers, very low aggression, but does not fold to 3-bets post-flop too often. So this is a great spot to be putting in a 3-bet. We can assume that our opponent has a pretty strong hand at this point. So I make it $18 to go, and our opponent does make a call. The river is the 5 of diamonds. That lets a couple of the draws get there, but when our opponent leads out with the ace on the turn, we can make the assumption that they probably didn't hit their straight draw. They could have some hands like ace X diamonds, but those are really the only ones we should be afraid of. And our opponent has very high bet percentages on the river. So when our opponent checks to us, we know that we're pretty much good in this spot, and we need to figure out a bet sizing that our opponent will call with an ace. Maybe our opponent has an ace jack, but we should figure out a bet sizing that our opponent will call with any ace. I think 34 is a good size, a little bit larger than 2/3 the pot, and our opponent does make the call, and we wind up taking down this pot of over $115 with the set of sixes. This was a tough one. We have King 9 suited spades playing from the cutoff at the 100 NL table. We get an open from a regular in under the gun, makes it a little bit larger than 2x to go, and under the gun plus 2 makes a call. I don't mind playing in position deep stacked against these two opponents, so I make a call here with the King 9 suited, but we get 3 bets from the small blind, who is somewhat recreational, pretty loose player. Under the gun plus 2 makes a call, and I elect to make the call of $10. We're getting 3-1 on our money right here, and playing a pot in position against our two opponents that are pretty deep stacked, and we see a flop of two-tone jack high. We hit the flush draw as well as the king over the board, and we have some backdoor straight draws, but the pre-flop 3-better leads out for $65, 1.5 times the pot. And I think we can be making this call or getting our opponent all in if we think our flush draw is going to be good against our opponent. We are getting 1.62 to 1 on our money. That is pretty good. Even though we are drawing, I think this will be a plus EV play against our opponent's range, who is a pretty fishy opponent, hasn't shown down very well, plays extremely aggressive. I was thinking we could possibly be drawing to a 9 as an out as well here. So I get all of our chips in. There is not much fold equity here, but there is always a chance that our opponent will make a fold here. Does not. We get it in. We are a 45% underdog here. So we need running straight cards, a king or a spade. 9 gives us a couple more outs, but the 10 on the river seals the deal for our opponent, and we wind up losing this pot. This is a close one. I think it was pretty much a break-even play, but definitely an interesting spot that we got in here. I'm not too upset with the way we played it. Let me know what you guys think about this one down in the comments section below. Still playing at the 100 NL, we have pocket 10s playing from the button. We get an open from under the gun +2, and we just make a call here in position, and the small blind puts in a 3-bet. Our opponent has a small blind re-steal percentage of almost 20% and a pre-flop 3-bet percentage of over 11%. So our opponent is 3-betting a very wide range, much of which is not premium hands. So I make the call with the 10s in position against our opponent, and the flop is 9 high. Rainbow, we have a gut shot straight draw as well as the 10s over the board. Our opponent leads out for half pot, and I make a call. Deuce, bricks, the turn, and our opponent again bets half pot. And right here we have to make a decision about whether we want to go with our hand or get rid of it. We probably could have done that on the flop as well, but right here our opponent has shown that they have a good hand, or they're representing a good hand, so it's whether or not we believe them. I see that our opponent hasn't shown down very well, only won 42% of showdowns, so I think our opponent is getting to showdown with less than optimal hands. So I elect to play the 10s all the way down. I make the call. Jack comes on the river. There's 96 in the pot. We have 53-27 left in our stack, and our opponent gets the rest of the chips in. I'm hoping that they did not hit the jack and that they were bluffing the whole way with something like ace king, ace queen, ace 10, or anything like that within our opponent's 3-bet range. So I make the call. See that we were up against kings. That one's pretty much a cooler. It's tough to put a player with such high 3-bet percentages pre-flop on pocket kings pre-flop, but that's where it pays off to have wide 3-bet percentages, because it's going to be tougher to read players, and you're going to have to make a much wider range against these players and play hands like 10s against them all the way down. What do you guys think about this one? Was there a mistake made in this one? Was I playing a little bit too loose against our opponent, and should we have narrowed the range down to some more premium hands? Let me know down in the comment section below. Here's another interesting one. We are at the 200 NL table, and we have pocket queens playing from the small blind. We get an open from under the gun +2, and we're putting in a 3-bet here, make it $22 to go, 3.66 times the open, and our opponent makes a call. There's $46 in the pot, and our opponent's effective stack is 178. Flop is 2-tone, 2 clubs, jack high. We have the queens over the board. I elect to just check back on this flop. I see our opponent's high bet percentages and a very wet board, as well as high fold percentages when bet into. And our opponent bets $17. This could be a good spot to put in a 3-bet, but I elect to just call, and the 9 of clubs comes on the turn. We now have the backdoor club draw as well as the backdoor straight draw going for us, and we have the queens over the board. I check back, and our opponent bets 30. I'm just going to be check calling the entire way down at this point. So I do make the call, and we wind up hitting our straight on the river. I check back once again, and our opponent jams all in, and our opponent doesn't show down all that great, only winning 49% of showdowns. I do make the call here. I think there's a lot of bluffs within our opponent's range if they're only winning 49% of showdowns. There's not a ton of flushes out there that beat us. I think there's, the ace kings, ace queen, ace jack that would be playing it this way, and then a couple suited connectors. But besides that, we are beating most of our opponent's range. So I make the call here, and we're pot committed, being in a pot of $140 with only 131 left in our opponent's effective stack. So I make the call, and our opponent was playing the 8-7 of clubs, hitting the flush on the turn, and we wind up losing a very large, almost $400 pot with the pocket queens. A lot of hands within this session that could have been mistakes. There was a couple spots here where I think we could have played it a little bit differently. What do you guys think about this one? Was there a mistake here with the flop when our opponent only bet $17? Could we have put in a raise? We probably would have wound up having the same result, but I think a raise here might have been a better play with the very draw heavy board. Let me know down in the comments section what you guys would have done in this situation. And now we are playing Jack 10 offsuit at the 200 NL. We get an open from under the gun +1. Same player that we just got in a hand with. The hijack player makes a call. Hijack player is recreational, and I'm making a call here being against these two players in position, and we wind up flopping an outside straight draw and 2 overcards, and it checks to us. We are putting in a continuation bet 2/3 pot, and we get 2 calls and see a turn of the Queen of Diamonds giving us the nuts. There is now $61 in the pot. We have 2 extremely large stacks. We are playing at still over 105 big blinds right here. Chance to win a lot of money on this hand. It checks around to us once again, and I put in a bet of $38. We get 1 call. We get 2 calls, and now there is $175 in the pot. We have 174 left in our stack, but the river pairs the board. That's a little bit scary, but not when both opponents check to us. We should figure out a bet sizing that our opponents will be making a call with here. A lot of the draws missed. The flush draw missed. The only draw that really got there is the one that we have in our hand, and I think if either opponent would have had the same hand, they would have been raising on the turn. So let's try to get a bet sizing that a pair will be calling here with. Something like Queen Jack, King Queen of clubs, Ace Queen of clubs, something like that. Maybe we can even get a 9 to call. So I put in $88. I think that's a perfect bet sizing to string along a queen here. This is a fairly large half-size pot bet right here on the river, but I think it is just the perfect amount to make a pair call in this spot. And we get 1 call from under the gun +1, and we wind up taking down this pot of a little bit less than $350 with the nuts queen high straight. Well, that was an interesting session. I think we definitely got in some spots that were questionable, and hopefully that induces some thinking and thought process of what you guys would do in these spots. And I hope you guys can learn from some of the mistakes that I made in this session, and you guys can improve on your game and not make the same ones, or think about different lines within your poker game to maximize your wins, minimize your losses, and improve that win rate on the table. Head down to the video description for links to all the poker products that I use, including Hold'em Manager, which is where we are reviewing this poker session, which is what I use for my on-table HUD as well. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you guys have not done that yet. I'll have some more videos coming out soon with poker action, poker analysis, and how to improve your game. But until then, I'll see you guys out on the virtual felt.